You're listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast.
Hello and welcome back to The Whole Truth podcast. I'm Paul Armstrong. Minerals 260 confounded the skeptics a few weeks ago when it completed the acquisition of the Bullabulling Gold Project in Western Australia. Bullabulling is a well-known project, but it's been sitting dormant for many years after having been discovered in the 1990s. At the time, the gold price was well under $1,000 an ounce and little exploration, if any, was done. Most of the big resource at this project is within the top 50 to 100 metres, if that. And Luke McFadyen, the Managing Director of Minerals 260, tells us on this episode of the podcast that he looks forward to drilling below that mineralisation to extend it at depth. It's a big, shallow body of mineralisation that's never really been tested at depth. Quite amazing considering it sits on the outskirts of Kalgoorlie. Luke says they're going to drill 80,000 metres to grow it at depth and along strike. The objective is to grow the resource in parallel with doing some feasibility studies, ultimately getting this thing back into production over the next few years. The company's backed by the one and only Tim Goyder. He's put money into the raising at 12 cents along with BlackRock and others. The stock's sitting at around those levels still, so there's a great opportunity for investors to get set at the same price as Tim Goyder, BlackRock and some other institutions. Luke takes us through what the plan is to unlock the value of the resource at depth and along strike and how he sees an opportunity to establish a very big resource in WA's eastern goldfields. Luke, it's been the best part of 6 months since you started looking at this Bullabulling asset. The rigs are about to start turning. This is the day of reckoning. It's arrived. How are you feeling?
Look, we're really excited. We've been working towards this time for a long time. The rigs actually started drilling about a week or two ago now. Second one arrives this week, third one next week. So we've hit the ground hard and fast, and we're excited.
What's the drilling campaign about?
Look, three pillars to that strategy. It's drilling down dip, drilling along strike, and upgrading the classification of the resource. When 60% of the holes across 12,000 holes are only 50 metres or less, we think there's a lot more gold there, and so that's what we're chasing.
Now, that's an important statistic, the depth of the drilling. This project has a big resource, but it's very shallow, isn't it? And what's been drilled and developed, I mean, this was going on in a price environment of what, circa US $500 an ounce or so?
Spot on, Paul. So Resolute did the majority of the drilling, 12,000 holes completed across the project since the 90s. The majority of that drilling, 99% of that drilling, was done when the gold price was $1,000 an ounce or less. So at the time, it made no sense to keep going deeper. So that's why we see a lot of shallow holes, and irrespective of the grade at the end of the hole, we see it stop. So we're very pleased to be able to pick up this opportunity, get drilling, go deep and go along strike.
So what you've got is a big, shallow brand of mineralisation.
Absolutely.
Spread out like a great big pan.
Absolutely. 8.5 kilometres of strike already for the 2.3 million ounces, and there's another 5 kilometres of strike further along the Bullabulling.
And all the mining that Resolute did is within that shallow pan as well.
Absolutely. So some of the historical pits are only 30 or 40 metres deep. Lateritic scrapes is what they were doing. And so we're drilling on top of those and looking for more gold there.
Right. So this big, broad, this expanse of mineralisation, shallow mineralisation, not tested at depth. And when we say at depth, we're not talking below 300 metres, obviously much even shallower than that. So there's every reason to believe, given it's open in all those holes, that there is still much richer primary mineralisation to be had.
That's why we picked up the project, Paul. That's why we believe investing in drilling is key. With 2.3 million ounces, we've got a fantastic foundation to start with. But drilling for the next 6 or 7 months is all about adding more ounces.
Now, people listening to this would say the obvious question here is, sure, that was done in the 90s by Resolute. A lot of years have passed since then. Why hasn't it been drilled at depth in that long intervening period?
Look, the owners at the time, we just put it off Zygen. They're a $90 billion global conglomerate across copper and lithium, as well as gold, of course. They're not an exploration company. Most of the world's resources and big projects are found by smaller and mid-tier companies, so that's us. The previous owners, when the gold price was $1,200 an ounce or less, again, doesn't justify drilling deeper. So there's no doubt the price environment, plus the mentality of our company led by Tim, is all about adding ounces through the drill bit.
Have you got any indication of what's down there below 100 metres?
Look, we do. We know the ounces per vertical metre is between 10 and 20,000 ounces from the existing resource. So we know for every 100 metres that we can add, we're going to add between 1 and 2 million ounces. That's the goal. Now, but the truth detector or the lie machine through the drill bit will absolutely tell us what's down there. But we don't know until we start drilling, and that's what we're going to do.
Were there any holes drilled to any significant depths? Are there any 300, 400 metre holes?
No. So that's why I keep saying it to everyone that I talk to, that 60% of the holes are 50 metres or less. A lot of that was RAB drilling in the late 90s, early 2000s, which was in vogue back then. Very limited deep AC drilling. We've got about 100 diamond holes, which was used for geotech and met work. But again, not deeply tested.
So let's look at how people would stand to make money out of this company. Luke, you've got, obviously, number one priority here, I take it, is to grow the resource.
Absolutely.
Drilling below the existing mineralisation.
Absolutely. That's this year's priority, as well as commence the feasibility study. The last time this asset was publicly listed on the ASX by Bullabulling Gold, they completed a PFS that came out with a great resource and a great project, which is what attracted Zygen to acquire it in 2014. But since then, nobody's put a study back together around this price environment with the more ounces we believe are there. So we'll complete that study by the middle of next year. We're targeting final investment decision by the end of next year, and then first production in the second half of 2028. So we're going to go from acquisition to first production within 3.5 years. That's the goal. But in the meantime, add more ounces, grow the resource. So the way we see it, Paul, is we're going to add value through the drill bit and then de-risk it through the study.
But you couldn't know yet what your production profile would look like, would you, given what's underneath?
No, we don't. We know what the historical studies have told us, but we're reinventing this asset. So with today's price environment, the last time a study was completed on this asset, the gold price assumption was $1,400 an ounce, and would you believe the Aussie dollar conversion rate was $1.05? So we're in a completely different economic environment.
Now, you raised the money to make this acquisition at 12 cents. The stock's 13 cents as we talk today. Did you expect the stock would have gone on a bigger run since then? I mean, it was a big feat to pull this off, but having said that, the company was capped at $30 million when you did it. So I know a few people were surprised that you managed to do it. It was a great achievement. But I suppose you had to raise a lot of money in the process. Is there a bit of indigestion in the stock?
So when we raised the money, we raised it at 12 cents. And then we've just got to bring our investors now onto the journey. Look, we're here for the long term. We're not here for a quick flash in the pan. And I think you'll see an improvement pretty soon.
I mean, that's, I suppose, the opportunity. People would say, well, when these stories start to get out there and retail investors look at this and they say, well, hang on, this has already had a run. The smart money was given the chance to get in at 12 cents. But they're buying it at virtually the same price. I mean, the instos have been buying it around this price.
Look, we've got fantastic support, not just from Tim Goyder, the chairman, who put in $12 million of his own cash.
At 12 cents?
At 12 cents. We've got BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, Samuel Terry, all substantial shareholders. So brilliant shareholders who want us to build Bullabulling, who want us to build the company even further. Today people can buy at a very similar price.
So today people can buy at basically the same price as Tim Goyder and BlackRock.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's obviously still the door's wide open in terms of opportunity.
Absolutely. Look, some of the best companies always have sustained improvement in the share price, right? So we're here for the long time, not for a short time. So I think once we start getting announcements about the drilling results, once we start de-risking the project through the study, I think we'll be fine.
What do you think would happen to the company if you did grow the resource significantly? Is there a good chance that somebody might come and hoover this up?
Oh, look, it's actually quite a...
I mean, you're on the outskirts of Kalgoorlie, aren't you?
No, look, we think it's a great project in a great location. We've got a great team, but we're here to build the asset and build the company. From my 4 years at Oz Minerals, we're always under that type of pressure. But the best thing we can do is move fast, stick to our plans, grow the resource, de-risk the asset, and what will happen will happen.
So take us through those next 6 months. I mean, people would say, well, okay, you got an 80,000 metre drilling program. That's a lot of drilling. How would you see this thing evolving between now and Christmas?
So we'll have our first results coming out by the end of May, and then regularly afterwards. We think every 4 to 5 weeks is the plan. We've got a new resource coming out in December. Again, we're expecting that to go forward. We're not investing 80,000 metres of drilling to go backwards, of course. And so we expect an improvement in the resource, both in classification and ounces by the end of the year. That will feed into all the mine planning studies, like I said, leading into FID towards the end of next year.
And what's the board makeup? You mentioned Tim's got 12, big chunk of it as chairman. Who else is sitting alongside him?
So we've got David Richards, who your audience might be familiar with as the as the MD of Liontown for just over a
David
decade.
sat in the hot chair you're in right now, and I think he was in here on a couple of occasions during the big run there. Made a lot of money for people who are followers of the Whole Truth podcast.
Absolutely. So David's still intimately involved in the company, was part of our due diligence, and he's part of our planning going forward. We've also got Emma Scotney, who's well known from her role as a NED at De Grey, obviously just did a big transaction. She's also on the board of Santana, another great gold company. And we've also got Stacey, who's joined us at the beginning of December, leading all the finance and governance work across the board.
And what's the rate? You talk about 80,000 metres. How fast is it going to unfold? I mean, how many rigs are you going to have going?
So by the end of May, we'll have 3 running with a diamond rig, so 4 in total. And then we steadily increase through there. One of the opportunities we don't know yet, Paul, is we might go beyond 80,000 metres. So results will...
How much dough have you got in the bank now?
We've out of the 220, 155 and a bit went to Norton Goldfields for the acquisition. All the drilling and all the studies is funded to get us to FID by the end of the
Right, so you're armed and dangerous. You got plenty of money to execute the program.
We've also got an optionality to increase the drilling if we really needed to. So if the results will dictate how much more drilling we do beyond 80,000, but we're funded to the end of next year at least.
Right. So it's a very straightforward story, isn't it? At the time of the acquisition, people were saying, gee, 30 million market cap, big acquisition for a company, multiples the size of the company. You pulled it off. But now you've got your hands on this big asset, as you said yourself in the past, where do you find, these sorts of resources? You can buy smaller ones, but this is, by brownfields exploration standards, this is a big project.
Look,
it's a big inventory.
The term we use is audacious, right? Very few companies, if any others, could pull this off. We know that. But it's hard work, it's people, it's strategy. But the asset dictated what we did. So it's a brilliant asset just outside of Kalgoorlie, 2.3 million ounces, under-drilled, under-explored, shallow drilled, and ready to go. So at a gold price like this, with a project like this, we've got a lot of exciting years ahead of us.
Who have you got in your corner broking-wise?
So Bells and Argonaut were the JLMs for our cap raise and did an excellent job. So both teams supported us globally. We went through Hong Kong, San Francisco, New York, London, Australia, of course, and all up, did a great job.
Yeah. So, any brokers' notes out there?
Argonaut have commenced coverage, and I believe Bells will start soon.
Well, what's Argonaut got on the stock?
Hayden came out with coverage a couple of weeks ago with a target price of about 30 cents.
Well, Hayden Besto, highly regarded analyst. When he came from Macquarie, made the switch to Argonaut. He's got 30 cents on it. Bell's going to initiate coverage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, it absolutely sounds pretty simple, albeit with
simple
big
and
scale.
Exciting. That's the way we think about it.
And it ticks every box. The investor's looking for something with plenty of brownfields upside, but also news flow, action. 80,000 metre drilling program means you're not going to be wanting for results for the foreseeable future. Right.
No, absolutely. Exciting year ahead, but exciting years ahead too.
Right. Well, when we get a big way through that program and you've got some assays, we might get you back on the show for another chat.
Would love to.
Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, Paul.
You've been listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast, produced by Resource Media, hosted by Paul Armstrong for Reed Corporate. Please note that Reed Corporate does not provide investment advice, and investors should seek personalised advice before making any investment decisions.